Okay, we are back coast to coast after a brief hiatus. How was your holiday, Ella?
It was very nice. Switched off, capped off obviously by a lovely victory for the All Blacks, maintaining that 50 or that unbeaten record at Eden Park. I was actually really nervous before that game because it would just be poetic, wouldn't it? That at 50 they were like, "Nah, you're not allowed to win here anymore." But no, it was great. Fiji turned on the weather. Really disappointed that I wasn't there in time to watch that first Pacific Nations Cup game. Left just the day before. But yeah, feeling relaxed, ready to crack into what is sure to be a very stressful weekend of rugby. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I can't like rugby championship's amazing because with no dog in the fight, you can really enjoy the games. But I can't imagine the level of tension in New Zealand and South Africa at the moment because, like, we saw from those tests against Ireland in the summer, it doesn't even matter if there's nothing really on the line. Like the intensity and the energy of those big games is just massive, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I guess as well because of that Rugby World Cup final rematch element as well. Yeah, and also we haven't touched on, or we didn't talk about before, but obviously it's been a bit of a messy week for the All Blacks, losing a coach in the process. Not that it's just us, because England had the same problem. But the storylines are writing themselves.
The England one was worse. Like, I actually think the All Blacks handled the Leo McDonald thing about as well as it's possible to handle a coach leaving the ticket. Like, there was a lot of people coming out and saying, look, philosophies didn't gel. It is what it is. Whereas the Felix Jones one is like shrouded in mystery. Like, nobody really knows what the reason is yet.
It was a bit of a PR masterclass, I thought, to be honest, from the All Blacks. And then, you got the direct contrast of kind of the bomb that came with Felix Jones's leaving of the England camp. That seems a bit, because he's got like a 12-month notice period or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, apparently. I mean, it's got to be bad if you come into a new job and you're 8 months in and things seem to be going well. And then you're like, no, I'm out. I think he said the phrase he used was an unstable working environment. And you never hear people talking about Steve Borthwick being like an unstable character. So I reckon it's got to be above him. And it's probably something in the union. And it might have something to do with, apparently he was really close with that strength and conditioning coach, Walters. Yeah, who went to Ireland. Apparently him and Felix Jones were really tight. So I wonder if, I don't know, maybe he got forced out because the union wanted somebody else. And I mean, I'm just speculating wildly here, but it's all we can do in the absence of any information.
You don't care. There's just a tiny crumb of hope now that he's coming back to Ireland. So
I'd say it's bigger than a tiny crumb. If I was working for the IRFU, I would be throwing everything at that man and being like, look, we'll wait for your notice period, but once it's over, you're coming straight over here. Because the timing's perfect. With Farrell going to the Lions, bring him in as an assistant coach, see how he gets on. And, I mean, he's been an assistant coach and he's won 2 World Cups. He's got to be thinking, like, I want to be a head coach internationally. And when you've got experience in that environment, why not step straight into a big team? Like, he doesn't need to go somewhere small and hone the skills. He's been to Razzie Erasmus University, he's all set.
Dr. Erasmus and his university.
Dr. Erasmus.
Dr. Erasmus. Oh, geez. Yeah, no, a big week in the world of rugby. Definitely going to be capped off with some absolutely massive games. None more so than the All Blacks and the Springboks, who have, fortunately for us recording this on a Thursday evening, my time, have released their teams. Should we talk about the All Blacks first?
Yeah, why don't you start with the All Blacks? An apology to any Argentina fans and Aussie fans who've somehow managed to find this channel, but we don't have the teams yet. So we'll talk a little bit about the game at the end, but we don't really know what to expect until we've seen the lineups, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the big story out of the All Blacks camp, I've been picking it. Sam Cane's redemption arc continues. He has been named to start in the team. Obviously, it's kind of poetic, right? The red card against the Springboks. A whole heap of critics about, kind of using that to make an indictment on his whole career. An injury, hasn't played much rugby really, and here he is starting against the same team. So I'm really excited for him. He's only got, in theory, a couple of tests left for the All Blacks because he's retiring to Japan at the end of this year. So I think he's going to be well up for it. There was talk about Don Papali'i starting, but he's been ruled out with a thumb injury. I don't know. I just feel like this is the start of the perfect storyline for me. Not to put too much pressure on it.
The thing I'm looking forward to the most is his face in the tunnel. Because, Peter O'Mahony called him a shit Richie McCaw, and he held on to that for like well over a year. And it was written all over his face in the tunnel before they came out against Ireland. I cannot imagine what it's been like, the criticism he must have gotten. And like imagine the stuff he was getting on social media and in the aftermath of that final. So I think we might see the most motivated Sam Cane we've ever seen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he looked pretty fired up even the other week against Argentina.
Yeah, he did.
I don't have the stats on hand, but it was wild. He was only on for maybe 19 minutes or something, wasn't he? And his first ruck came out with blood all over his face. And then I think he was near the top of the tackle count despite only playing 19 minutes. So I think he's winding up. The personal motivation is obviously really high. No Ethan de Groot as well. He's injured. Is that going to be a big loss, do you think?
I mean, he's too good of a player for it not to be some kind of a loss, right? But part of me wonders, like, even if he was fit, Tamati Williams was so good against Argentina, and he gives you that extra carrier. Like, would they maybe have thought about going with him anyway? I don't know.
I think I would have been
tempted. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, de Groot, I guess he, if I remember correctly, really kind of solidified his place in the All Blacks team in that famous Ellis Park victory in 2022, the one that saved
that saved Fozzie's job. Yeah.
Like a nice ground for him. But yeah, Tamati Williams will have a huge opportunity to stake a claim on that jersey this weekend. And then, we've got a pretty handy looking bench.
Speaking of staking a claim, who I'm looking hard at is Vai. Because he was so good in that second game against Argentina. If he can back that up, like, there's been a lot of talk about how there's no options at lock for the All Blacks. But if he has a really good game against South Africa and he comes out of this series looking as good as he did against Argentina, like, that's just another option. Like, you've got 100% a new body.
And I think with him, he's always been a bit of a wind up on the field. He loves a bit of shithousery, and he'd always be like clapping in people's face. And I was like, I don't know if you've like given the All Blacks performance to have earned this year, like have that kind of attitude.
Bit of a Ben Earl thing, like when England are winning turnovers and he's screaming like he's won the World Cup.
Yeah, truly. But after that performance against Argentina, I was like, okay, that was definitely his best performance in the black jersey. He really impressed himself upon the game. And you're right that this is the ultimate test for him. And if he can solidify that performance, that's going to do huge things for confidence in our locking combinations, because Sam Darry also is looking pretty handy.
You know what value would also give you? Because he's a 6 as well, right?
I think he's done a bit of cover at 6,
Yeah. If you have like a Tyke Burns style player who can play in the back row and in the row, it unlocks the 6-2 if you want to go that way. Like, it does a lot of stuff for you tactically. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how he does.
100%. No, I'm keen for him to crack on, because he has actually been in the team for quite a while. He's got sort of 20 or 30
quite a few caps. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is time to Bovai. It is time. If we look at the backs, my guy Caleb Clark gets a backup, which I'm really, really stoked for. We've talked a lot, I think, this season about what he's done to improve his form, and he took that opportunity against Argentina and he said, I'm here, Razor, and Razor's repaid the faith, I think.
Yeah. It's good to see him in, because you want to see like the players who are tearing it up in the domestic leagues. You want to see them in the national team, right?
Yeah. And also, I guess the surprising thing is that I know that there's so much competition in the outside backs for the All Blacks, but Talia on the bench, like, you wouldn't have thought that 6-8 months ago. So it proves how competitive things are and how difficult it probably is for Razor and his assistants.
Yeah, like Talia was one of the best players at the World Cup, like top 3 performers probably across the whole tournament, and now he can't even get in the team. It's crazy.
Yeah, wasn't he World Breakthrough Player of the Year for the men?
He was, yeah. Yeah, absolute madness. But
funny, I mean, I don't think things can change.
Yeah, it's probably up there with like Springboks second rows as like the most competitive possible position to get into a team. Like, the All Blacks just seem to produce wingers like nobody else. You've got these guys who seem like generational talents, and then they're gone from the team in 3 years because there's some new guy. It happens all the time.
Julian Sarvi, a prime example. I mean, I think he racked up 50 tests, but yeah, they just churn. And probably I was looking the other day at how many tests Rico has, because you'd probably say he's a veteran of the team these days. He's sort of 70 odd tests.
Yeah.
But I think his transition to centre probably helped him stay in the team, because it's just too competitive.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's so many players. Like, remember George Bridge?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of tests I saw him, I was like, oh my God, this guy's a worldie. He's like gone.
Off to Montpellier he went. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Nehemiel Scudder, I mean, that was injuries, but yeah, there's been a...
I fell into a hole the other day of just watching compilations of him. Like, so good. So good. It's such a shame what happened to him with the injuries.
Such a shame. But he comes from like some pretty... Both his uncles on either side were All Blacks. And my dad used to watch one of his uncles, George Scudder, when he was younger, and he was like the worldly winger of the 70s. So I just think that's so crazy that, you know, it's like true lineage, but again, didn't play many tests at all. So no, there's been some good ones. Anything else stood out to you about that All Blacks team, or what they're going to need to do in order to, I guess, like, they're not the favourites going in. I know the Springboks fans want to take that underdog status. You can't. It's ours this time.
So funny the way the two fan bases are fighting over who's the favorite. Like, I mean, South Africa are clear favorites. They're world champions. They're at home. The team is way more settled. Injuries, you know, they have. We'll get onto that, but they know their team. Whereas New Zealand are still figuring it out. So yeah, they have to be favorites. But you know, New Zealand have bitten them there before, right? Like, it can happen. So I mean, the nervousness among South African fans on social media is like palpable. You can really feel it. I guess for New Zealand, it maybe feels like a little bit of a free hit. Like, no one expects them to win. It's not a free hit, but no one expects them to win. Pressure's all on South Africa. Because if New Zealand win, it's a famous victory, and if South Africa lose, you know, it's back to that thing of like, oh yeah, they win World Cups, but they can't win test matches in between. And that whole debate will start again.
And you do feel like they are trying to directly address that debate, right? In the past, they've been pretty happy to just be like, yeah, but we win World Cup, so who cares? Whereas clearly the evolution of this team is into unprecedented success. So this is a real test. And obviously against, you know, that Ireland series was obviously very hotly contested. I hope we get battles as epic as that, but I do have scars of like Twickenham 2023 just sitting in the back of my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think we will get, like, I think the All Blacks will raise their level. I think we will get two cracking matches. Especially this first test is going to be really interesting because there's so many untested combinations for the Springboks. You know, like 9 changes from the last game. Quite a few of them enforced as well, which, you know, you can have Rassie always has like a master plan, but I wonder if he planned for so many first choice players being unavailable. But I mean, one thing I saw in his press conference when he named the team, the thing I absolutely loved, is they were talking about Sasha playing at 10. And I can't remember what the question was, but his answer was, oh, let him play some games, let him make some mistakes. And it's like, having that attitude going into a game against the All Blacks is amazing. Like, you wouldn't get that from any other coach in the world. South Africa's probably the only team with the winning record and the security to do that. But still, it's great to see.
Far out. He looked so relaxed in that press conference. He was like back, having a little chuckle with the journos. God, he's such a cat. Like, what a blessing, Rassie Erasmus. Honestly, what a blessing he is. Should we delve into this Springboks team? Because there's certainly more to talk about. Twists and turns. Yes.
So, as you were in the front row, but then no Etzebeth or Snyman in the second row. So we've got PSDT and Norkia of the Bulls. I kind of think Norkia is going to have like a massive performance. He's like that kind of dog of a player that you need in a game like this. Like, I reckon he'll make more tackles than seems humanly possible. He'll just be involved everywhere. He's a good line-out option too. And then they've got Khaleesi, Ben Jason Dixon, and Visa back in the back row. Visa, definitely a big one to get back because they've lost quite a lot of muscle in that second row. Peter Steph Toy is going to have to play in that second row. So I wonder, will we see him in the wide channels as much in this new Tony Brown era? And then, Sasha at 10, and then a big one at 15, which I didn't see coming at all. I don't know about you.
I think I saw Afalele Fassi being maybe starting at 15, but I didn't see Willie LaRue completely out of the 23. That seems
It was pretty cold what Razzie said when he was asked about that. Like, I know it's just honesty and it's the reality at that level of sport, but to be like, yeah, he's not going to make the next World Cup is, it's tough at the top.
Would he say it about Sia? Would he say it about Sia?
No. But if the chairman of Willie LaRue's club had come out and called him fat, maybe he'd be starting this weekend. But I'm really happy for Fassi, and I think I was talking to someone in my comments about it. It's like the Pollard and LaRue as like an axis makes a lot of sense, right? Because Pollard's not really a playmaker, so you kind of need someone to come in and step in and make those decisions. But Sasha he's a box of tricks is full. Like Sasha can do everything. So you don't need that second playmaker so much. So why not go for a guy who's bigger and stronger, can cover more ground? The All Blacks love a short kick as well. So you've got to be completely switched on at 15. And Fassi he's faster. He can cover more ground. He's bigger. It makes sense.
He's super exciting.
Yeah.
Super. Yeah. Like, cause did he score the opening try?
He did
against Australia. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
That was
it was a great score, and the way he stripped the Aussie winger, like he was like he was running in sand. He was nowhere near him.
No, yeah, bold choices by Rusty, but you gotta hand it to him. I think as well. Handré Pollard. I saw it must have been Tony Brown in a press conference earlier in the week, and he was talking about how he had watched a lot of Handré Pollard like years ago at under 20 level. And he made a comment that when Handré Pollard was playing in under 20s, he was like the most playmaking-esque 10 that he saw. And he was saying like, I know that I'm bringing in a new system and Handré's played the way he has for years, but like we know that he has this in him. And if we can get him playing back like that, then that's a really exciting thing for our attacking system. So Handré Pollard is certainly not in the like discard pile at all. It sounds like there's a little project there. So that's exciting. And to be able to reinvent yourself a little bit at this stage in your career is pretty cool. So I'm eager to see what comes of that as the year kind of progresses.
Yeah. I remember when he first kind of came on the scene for South Africa, that was the talk, right? Like, this is an X Factor kid. This isn't, he's become this kind of metronomic, like, kicking machine because that's what South Africa required of him over the years. But God, it would be, like you say, it would be amazing to see him have a bit of a swan song and kind of change his game a little bit. All the best players do it. So
they do.
Over to you, Handré.
They do.
See what you
do
got.
We dare touch on the Eben Etzebeth merry-go-round?
Another just genius play, I think. We were talking about this before recording. If you say, we've got Eben in the team, he's 50-50, and then you have to drop him out the next day, that's like really deflating for the players, for the fans. But if you say, he's not in the team, and then 24 hours later, you're like, psych, here he is, he's on the bench. That's like good news for everybody. I think the way they've played that is brilliant.
Oh, I felt the reverse as a fan, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure the All Blacks aren't consuming as much rugby media as I am on a day-to-day. They're busy doing other things. But, when I saw he was potentially out, I was like, oh my gosh. And then when the rumors started that when he wasn't named, I was like, oh my gosh, it's real. I can't believe it. And then the heartbreak of, I mean, to be fair, like, you want him in there. He's
for sure
a talisman for them at this point.
I can think of one All Blacks player who certainly would have been keeping an eye on it. Young Sam Darry.
Oh,
because now, whenever they bring you on, it'll be just before or just after Evans come on, and you're going to have to take on, like, realistically, the best lock in the world, right? Is there anyone better than him?
Realistically.
There's other people up there, right? But over the last 24 months, has there been anyone better than him? Like, he makes huge plays in big games.
Maybe Marrow at his best against us, maybe for his 60-minute incredible stint. But consistency, it's Eben, Yeah,
that's a good shout. So good luck, Sam.
But that's what you want, right? Like at the end of the day, I think as All Blacks fans, we do have to be realistic about this team and their experience and what we've lost, right? Like even going up against Sam Whitelock and Brodie Retallick, no qualms. You knew that was like a pretty even contest, actually probably skewed in our favor in terms of the combination.
Yeah.
We have lost. That's like 250 caps of experience in our lineup. So Eben will be licking his lips, and that's fine. This is going to be a great learning opportunity for our locks. I just hope it's not a learning opportunity that comes at the expense of our dignity and pride as a nation.
Always possible. But, I'm sure if you go back in the early history of Retallick and Whitelock, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's some pastings from South Africa in there, right? Yeah. Like, I'm sure there's games where they got totally outclassed and had to learn from it very quickly. Like, that is part of the journey, especially if you're a young player.
Exactly. And their journey intersected with like Bucky's Botha, Victor Matfield era, and then so it's all maybe those matchups are imperative in the respective development of South African locks and All Blacks locks. It's a coming of age, it's a right message.
If you've played against Bucky's Botha, no one else is going to scare you. Not as much as he would. That guy was ruthless.
That was my favorite. That was why I loved Springboks test, was watching like our locks up against Victor Matfield and Bucky's Botha. They were, and like Skalkberger, those are the ones.
I remember that Lions tour where he got I feel like he got in trouble for, no, Schalkberger got accused of gouging, but Bucky's Botha got in trouble for something else. I can't remember what he did.
In my head, I don't want to defame anyone. I thought there was something about like biting or head-butting.
It was something extreme.
Savage,
Really savage. And also, from what I remember, and again, I don't want to defame anyone either, but I feel like they got him pretty bang to rights. Like, I feel like he almost certainly did the thing that he was accused of doing. And I remember all of the South African team coming out with Justice for Bucky's t-shirts, and like it turned into this huge thing. And it's like,
that is so good. Wait,
the value of a player like that. It was a headbutt. Okay.
Yeah, 9-week suspension for a headbutt against Jimmy Cowan, the All Black halfback, in 2009. I think.
Oh, hang on, maybe did he miss the Lions tour because of that then?
Oh, maybe. 2009 would have been a Lions tour.
Yeah. Either way.
Oh, we had to do like a full apology. Jeez,
I suppose as the games change, like Eben is probably, because you can't really be an enforcer like that anymore, right? Like there's too much scrutiny. Like you'll just be banned all the time. You just never play. So Edsmith is so good at like going right up to that line.
It's all the best players are
now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to see him in there. I feel like he'll be raring to go, like the energy he'll bring off the bench, considering what was the stat I saw, that he had started or had played in 22 consecutive matches against the All Blacks.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Like he'll probably be past his records a little bit now. So yeah, huge. And do you think, I haven't seen that much of Peter Seftotoy playing second row. Is that going to be a big adjustment, do you think, for him or the team?
He's just that good. It's hard to imagine that he'll miss a step, because it's not like he's never played there before.
No.
So yeah, I think he'll be okay. But at the same time, it's a new combination. He's not, it's less about how he does in the second row, more about like what you miss with him not being in the back row. I think like Jason Dixon, big chance for him to impress, but he's not Peter Seftotoy. He's only starting out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they really notice it or not.
Yeah. Someone else, sorry, we touched on it very briefly, but Jasper Visa that was a 6-week ban, right? But it spanned over quite an awkward time period. Is that right?
Yeah. And it was for something that was definitely like an offense that he did in the Premiership. But hang on. Yeah. Jasper Visa got suspended for he sort of picked someone up and kind of threw them down on their head at ruck time in the Premiership. And it was like, he didn't mean to throw them down on their head. I think it was just like an act of sort of frustration and aggression that this guy was in the way. But one of those where you could see why some people thought it was harsh. And at the same time, it was like so unnecessary for him to do that you could see why he got the ban. But either way, they've kind of been struggling to fill that gap at 8. And I can't think of a player that would fill any gap more than him. Like, he's giant, his carrying is massive, and they really need him now. You know, he's not sitting in Vermeulen's shadow anymore. This is his time.
Speaking of Dwayne Vermeulen, I was doing some Googling just because when all the Leon McDonald stuff came out, there were all these articles saying, oh, it's so absurd. The All Blacks have so many coaches. And I was like, I don't think we have that many coaches compared to anyone else. Turns out we have less assistant coaches in the Springboks. But nowhere in any of the lists was like Dwayne Vermeulen's actual role written. And they keep referring to him as like a roving coach in a roving role. And I was like, what is your role? And then I keep seeing him be the water boy. I was like, what is this?
So I know he has a specific coaching role. He's also kind of like a player liaison between the playing group and the management. And he's also like an ambassador for the Springboks with the regional Currie Cup teams. So he really does have like a really wide brief. So he's the guy who'll go out to the Currie Cup teams and tell players, I guess, what sort of things the coaches want to see from people who want to make the Springboks, that kind of thing. So yeah, he really does have a broad remit. And I think they're really banking on sorry. They're really banking on the fact that he only just finished playing. So he's able to speak to players in a way that probably not many of the older coaches are able to.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I remember watching an interview of Razor and he was kind of saying, oh, I finished being an All Black and I went up to Robbie Deans. I said, I want to be a coach. Can I come and coach at Canterbury? And he was like, get biffed. You need to go to club rugby. Whereas Rusty said, Dwayne, I got a spot right here for you.
Yeah,
the season's ready.
They were already talking about it during the World Cup. They were already talking about it. I mean, during the... When did he retire?
End of the World Cup.
Yeah. He was already sitting in the coaching box. You're right. They were already talking about it like, yeah, he's in.
He's in. He's there and he's roving. So
yeah,
good for them. I think we were talking earlier, I think this really is the test where we are likely to see or start to see the true ramifications of the South Africans not being in Super Rugby. Like watching these player interviews with All Blacks who are like, oh, I've never been to South Africa before. I've never played there. And understanding that they have never played against many of these players before. We really are in a new era and it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, there's no question that there has been an impact already. But as time goes on and, you know, more of those players who have played a lot of rugby in South Africa filter out what that's going to mean for, I guess, both All Black rugby and Springbok rugby. So I think it's the start of this kind of new era in the relationship. Sure.
It seems crazy to me because, like, for most of my lifetime, the way I looked at it, because the All Blacks were so good, if you'd asked me who's going to lose out the most if these two stop playing each other, I would have been like, South Africa. Like, the All Blacks are the best. Like, you know, 2015 kind of All Blacks, like when they used to dominate between World Cup cycles, you'd be like, surely having the opportunity to play them all the time is like the greatest gift you can have. But it does seem like that's how they stayed so sharp, right? And that's how they stayed on top of their game so much, because to play the way they play and still and beat a team like South Africa all the time, you have to be so on it. Basic skills under pressure. There's no better pressure than like giant South African men running at you. It just doesn't.
In South Africa with their home fans, you know, it's just a different kettle of fish entirely. So no, I'm wary for sure that, like, I don't know, it feels like we were in the strong place and we're just fading.
But also how much of that is just like you've exported so many coaches and, you know, other unions and stuff are just pumping so much money into rugby and everyone's been trying to catch you for the longest time. And like, you know, the hardest thing to do is lead the pack because you've not got anything ahead of you to aim at. Everyone else is looking at your system and being like, okay, how can we get up to that level? Like, do you think you'll ever see All Black dominance of the sort we used to see again? Like, do you think, and it's no shade on like the current player crop or anything like that, but just the reality now is that it's so competitive. No one's likely to go that far ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. Well, when someone in my comments the other day, I did a video about that ridiculous statistic about the All Blacks unbeaten streak at Murrayfield. And someone was like, do you think the Scottish will ever beat the All Blacks? And I was like, well, no one thought Ireland could beat the All Blacks until 8 years ago, you know? So of course, Scotland will eventually beat the All Blacks. When? I don't know. But wow, maybe now they've got David Nusafora coming sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, would I like to see it? Absolutely. But when it was happening, like, it doesn't happen, not just in rugby, it doesn't happen in any sport, really.
Yeah.
So the whole time you're obviously sitting there going, this has to end eventually. I remember I had friends who used to go, who used to sit there and go, oh, it'd be good for World Rugby if like the All Blacks lost a little bit, you know, like it's boring. And I remember saying to them at the time, just you wait until we're not winning and you'll regret the day you ever said that. How you like it now? Nah, I mean, look, we're obviously still very successful, like nothing to turn your nose up. We've just got used to ridiculously unprecedented success, but it is an exciting time to be a rugby fan. Much is changing as well about what the sport actually looks like. So
yeah,
I don't think we'll see, because what was a stat the other day? It was like we were number one for 9 years in a row without dropping it. That's not normal.
That's crazy.
I don't think we'll see that type of dominance again, just because the competitiveness at tier 1 is so high. So
yeah, that's true. Like the top 4 or 5 nations, like France on a good day, if England get their act together, and then Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa just seem to be a different level to everybody else, right? But the gap isn't that big. Depends on who's playing home. Depends on what form everybody's in. Oh, it's a good time to be a fan. I'll tell you that.
It is. It is, she says. Pained.
All right.
Yeah.
Time for the nasty part. Predictions.
Okay. I'm a realist. I am a realist.
Okay.
I felt good looking at the team sheet today, to be fair. Like I looked at it and I went, oof, okay, I don't feel awful about this. But they are back-to-back world champions. They are innovating beyond belief. They are confident. They've got 3 or 4 teams that could be their first team. The South Africans should win this, particularly at Ellis Park. I'm picking the Springboks by, I think it will be close. Like the All Blacks are going to be fired up. There is a whole World Cup final loss motivating them. Like that runs deep, right? Springboks by 4.
I also think it'll be close. The whole week I've sort of been talking myself into the idea that New Zealand might be able to pull off a shock.
It would be so cool.
The thing is, though, it's like, do I think there's a huge gap between New Zealand and Ireland right now? No. I know New Zealand have lost some players since the World Cup, and they've lost some big players. But that's what makes this week so interesting, because South Africa are missing some big names too. So it's like, who's going to be hurt worse by that? And then you think about the atmosphere around the team, and it's like, I think it's helpful for the All Blacks that they lost a game in the build-up to this, like that they lost to Argentina, because there'll be no complacency. You know, the coaches will have been working overtime after that, whereas they kind of coasted through those 2 tests against England, you know? And South Africa had a good workout against Australia, but like, no disrespect to Australia, they're just not in the same stratosphere at the moment, you know? South Africa are
so sad.
It is. But like, I do think I can understand why South African fans feel like they get shortchanged by the media, because like they've just won 2 World Cups in a row. And they're still trying to get better. They're still trying to like drastically change their game plan. It's working. And, you know, if it clicks for 80 minutes, I don't think there's any team in the world could beat them. But
agree.
With the players missing, will it be a bit disjointed? Oh, so much of it's going to come down to what happens on the day. So much of it. Like I always think it's so weird trying to predict test rugby, because like literally the bounce of a ball in the first 10 minutes can end up deciding the game. A refereeing call in the first 10 minutes can end up deciding the game. Like,
don't we know it?
Yeah, I don't have to tell you.
That wasn't a refereeing call. That was a poor tackle. It was a poor tackle. Let me be on the record. It was a poor tackle.
Well, yeah, but it was also both, right? It's still a refereeing call. There were other days where maybe that wouldn't have gone down the way it did. But yeah, I do. The smart money is on South Africa. I'm also going to say like South Africa by 3. But
that was like you vomited that. 3.
I think it's going to be really tense. And I think there'll be tries. It's not going to be like a low-scoring, tense game either. Like it'll be an entertaining game to watch, and it'll be close.
I can't deal with close though, because we've just had this. We are, as a nation, a little bit fatigued by the time zone issues at the moment. So like the Olympics were terrible. That was getting up in the middle of the night. This is at 3 a.m. So like please don't raise my heart rate too much because I would like to go back to sleep afterwards. Please.
This is after early mornings and all that kind of thing. This feels like a reward, like a 4 o'clock kickoff. Get settled down in the pub, have a pint before the game, and then just watch it unfold. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
I'm so jealous. I'll be in bed with my headphones on. It's always so tense. Oh dear.
The things we put ourselves through.
Yeah, truly. Pain. We don't have much to talk about in terms of Australia, Argentina, because we don't have teams. I think the Australian public, now that, they really kind of got put on their ass a little bit by South Africa, I think the Rugby Australia public has really accepted that, okay, this is a long-term change that we're witnessing, and we're going to have to be patient. So I don't know how that puts them for this game against Argentina, because I guess all we really know about Australia is that they're somewhere between South Africa and Wales.
Yeah. Huge gap there. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like they have to go all out for these two games, because if they don't get a win against Argentina, I don't think they're going to get a win in the Rugby Championship. Like, I don't think they'll beat New Zealand. I know when we talked to Finn, he was super confident about maybe taking a scalp, but it's just, they've got so much ground to make up, and like, they don't look like a team that really believes in themselves yet. I don't think they've had like enough repetitions of things going well to really believe in themselves yet. And, it will happen. Like, they will get better than they are now. But, for Argentina, like, they've gotten a win away in New Zealand. If they win the 2 games at home to Australia, and then they can go all out for a scalp against South Africa. But whether they get it or not, it'll be one of their best rugby championships ever, right? Like, it'll be a huge performance for them. So to let that slip against Australia at home, I just don't know if I see it.
I think the home factor is going to be big for Argentina, isn't it? Like, they've come back, obviously disappointed with the Eden Park result, but still another win on New Zealand soil. So, the fans will be absolutely G'd up.
Yeah.
They'll be like, we smell blood. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's, for Australia, it's like, what do they do? There aren't like obvious solutions to their problems, right? Like, they don't have the player pool they used to have. They've had a terrible World Cup and, a weird coach who seems to shatter everybody's confidence as he's coaching them. Like, it was the same story for England, right? Like, some of the players talked about, like, Ben Earl said, like, he completely lost his confidence, and he's gone on to be like England's best player over the last year or so. So, yeah, it's hard to see a near light at the end of the tunnel anyway. But
yeah, it's not announced. We don't have the team, but obviously leadership challenges as well. Liam Wright was named as the captain.
Yeah.
That was quite exciting. He was quite promising in his first game. Then he got injured, hasn't been captain since. We've had about 4 other captains since then. And rumor has it, the Raw are reporting that when the team gets announced tomorrow, Harry Wilson will be named as the captain, which will make him the Wallabies' 90th ever captain and their 8th in 15 games.
That is amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's just a basket case, isn't it?
But yeah, I truly wonder what Joe Schmidt thought going in and what he thinks now.
I reckon he knew.
Do you think but do you think it's worse or better than what not better, but like how much worse is it than what he potentially expected and knew going in?
I don't know. I think it's like you said, their level is somewhere between South Africa and Wales, right? He won't have been surprised by that. They will have expected to beat Wales at home. They won't have expected to get anything out of those 2 games against South Africa if they're being really honest with themselves, right? Like, you don't measure a brand new project by how they do against the back-to-back world champions. Like, it's just not a fair way to judge where the team is at the moment. And I guess, like, if I was him calling that coaches meeting before those 2 games, I would have been like, listen, things might get pretty dark over the next couple of weeks, but we just have to remember, like, this isn't the be all and end all.
No.
There's so much more to come from them and from the team. But that only works if you back that up. Like, even if they go and put 2 good performances in, but get 2 losses in Argentina, it will feel kind of like good news, because they were you know, and that first game against South Africa, they got absolutely sweated. That second game, okay, it was against the second string team, but they really competed for the first 40 minutes. Like there were some good news stories to pull out of that. How good was your boy Tizano? He was very, very good in that first half. Like there are people that they can start to build a future around in that team. It's just
and that 50-22, who kicked that? That was great.
Yeah, see, there were moments.
There were moments. Did you
see Israel Folau coming out and being like, I'd walk into that Wallabies team right now?
Okay. I'll say this on here because I don't know if people have like issues with their memory. That man, everyone was like, oh, he's so good, blah, blah. Every time he played the All Blacks, he was terrible. He was not good. Like, because I remember being like, oh, I should be scared of Israel Folau. No, it was kind of like the Quade Cooper thing. Or maybe it was my 2011 to 2015 rose-colored goggles on and he was actually fine and I thought he was useless. But I thought that was quite a bizarre thing to say from him, actually.
I think it is a weird thing to say. It's weird to stick the boot in like that. But I think he's probably correct only because of how bad they are. You know?
I'll let that sit.
It's tough, but yeah.
I just want the Lions tour to start to feel like an exciting moment in Australian rugby history and the Australian rugby story, rather than like this huge burden that's hanging over them that feels scary. You know, it's meant to be a great celebration of rugby. And I think we'll get, you know, they're going to be a completely different team by then, I'm sure of it. But yeah, it just must feel very daunting. Very daunting.
It's really bad news for everybody if they're not competitive, though. Like, because it's bad news for the Lions as well, because it'll open up that conversation of like, why do we even do this anymore? You know, I did see there's a lot of discussion about like, should they update it? You know, should the Lions tour essentially be the British and Irish team against like a mixed South African New Zealand team, which from like a marketing perspective is a much better proposition, isn't it? Like you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. 12 years to see them play the All Blacks. You don't have to wait 12 years to see them play the Springboks every time. So, yeah, I wonder if they'll consider it.
I mean, look, how many times do we get like combined 15 Southern Hemisphere versus combined 15 like graphics, everything? It does make a lot of sense in terms of marketability. And, you know, there's been question, like even just a like team that was, say the All Blacks and the Pacific Islands all together, or the All Blacks, I guess the entire Southern Hemisphere. Yeah. You wonder.
Yeah.
The brain trust is thinking about it, surely.
Give the people what they want, is what I say. More representative teams. More crazy matches.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I think we've about run everything in the world of rugby in 44 minutes. Not bad.
Not bad. We said 30. We gave you an extra 15.
We did. I did have a domestic interruption in the middle. So, you know, that's probably added a couple of minutes. But
yeah, nice.
All right. Well, we will be back next week. We can talk about these games. I hope
we'll have a result. We'll know something.
Yeah. I hope it goes well for you. Well, really, I just hope it's a good game. I don't want to pick a side because I don't want to get yelled at by South Africans. But yeah, I just hope it's a good game. And you know, the number one is just no red cards, please.
Yeah.
Please, no red cards. Let's have 15 against 15, and let's have it decided on the night.
Yeah. It could go one of two ways with Sam Cane, like, because I'm pretty sure he got red carded in both his last outings against the South Africans, or he got a card. So I don't think it's going to go that way. I think he's going to have an amazing game. I really want him to have an amazing game. But yeah, discipline is going to be important because there'll be certainly a lot of niggle out there for sure.
Yeah. he could enter the Charlie Ewels club, right? Where it's like you play a test and you get sent off, and then there's a long break and then you get sent off again. Not quite as bad as Ewels, but
yikes, yeah, I forgot about that. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We've been chatting for 45 minutes and we'll leave you there. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole thing. We're both on TikTok if you want to check us out there for not 45-minute videos.
Some of mine are pretty close. I mean.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Cool. See you next week.